Welcome back to episode 70, season 6 of the Geometric View. Thank you for being here. Snap into a Slim Jim. Welcome to my wrestling boys. Check it out. Stay tuned. It gets very interesting all the way through. Looks like the 2022 Electromagnetic Universe World Expo is turning out to be great with big name performers.
I'm Buddy James, your host.
The link is in the show notes below.
Let's get into the circuit.
We greatly appreciate your support. The best way to donate to us is on PayPal. Just send money directly to goldenscaling@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
To get to with William Gilbert. First of all, my kids don't know who Gilbert is. So,
well, not many people know about him. He was,
I know, right? I guarantee you Newton did.
Sorry?
I guarantee you Newton did.
Well, he knew about him 60 years after he died, probably longer than 60 years. But of course, he preceded Giordano Bruno and he preceded Galileo, who was very aware of his work and quoted off him, and a couple of other greats were very aware of his work.
Yeah, he's huge. It's a big deal.
But he didn't actually get he wrote all his stuff in Latin, and he didn't actually get translated into English until about the 1850s for the first time.
There's no way Newton didn't know how to read Latin. Come on.
Oh no, yeah, Newton knew exactly how to read Latin. But what I'm saying is, it was work that was kind of just disappeared off the grid. Although he was working on the navigation system with John Dee, try to understand the magnetism and how with a lodestone you could find your latitude with the way the lodestone pointed. But it wasn't using a flat compass. It was, but anyway, he experimented with many of the features of magnetism, and he was probably the first scientist we know that described the magnetic field, and so he was quite a luminary. So his worth is well worth looking at, and he ended up building these Terrellas anyway, which was magnetic balls that he was getting to interact in some way, and he was convinced that the planets operated on this basis, and so they were really at that time around 1835 or 6. They were really putting together a cosmology that involved electricity, and it was a think tank that not only did it have massive military significance, but it was also these people were highly religious people, probably at the birth of the Rosicrucian movement. And they were highly influential thinkers, and that was information that they were that was coded and was travelling all around the sort of aristocratic courts of Europe, and it was being able to accurately navigate basically. So there's a lot of stuff. Basically, what I posted on there the other day is the best synopsis of his work that I've found. But of course, it wasn't even. They didn't have mathematics, calculus. They didn't have even. They didn't have any Cartesian arithmetic. Because Descartes hadn't come along yet. So he was criticised for his lack of specificity with his experiments, but his experiments were all done sort of in his kitchen sink, and they were all fairly conclusive. So it's worth looking at his stuff. Quite a genius. I mean, I'm particularly interested in his Terrella experiments, and I was wondering if you got sort of if you had gyroscopes contained in a globe, and you that's it's got an electromagnetic it's spinning magnets around in the gyroscope, and then you float that globe so it's not got negative buoyancy. It's got zero buoyancy, if you know what I'm saying. It's so you can suspend it in a liquid, and then spin it up or spin it up in the liquid or whatever. How that would interact if that's a charged globe, how would that interact with another spinning charged globe in the pool of water? Just little experiments like that. I wonder if it'd show anything. It might
I don't know. Maybe my sons
illustrate
would do that experiment. I don't know.
yeah, it might well, he was explaining the tilt of the North Pole with his experiment when he was floating this magnetic needle in a cork in water, and it never pointed out at 90 degrees. It dipped down, and measuring that degree, measuring that angle of dip, they were at the needle was actually pointing at the real North Pole, not on the surface North Pole. And so this is what they were getting to understand, the curvature of the Earth and the magnetic field of the North Pole.
Right. So I'm seeing here that he published De Magnete in 1600. So you said, but you were talking about the 1800. So who was doing the work?
1536. I was talking about 1536.
I thought you said the 1850s.
I don't.
They were.
Yeah, 1850s was when it was first translated to English.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right. I get that, but who was doing the work in the 1800s? What were you talking about there?
Well, there's been some references to the people who first translated his work and made it available academically, and that didn't happen until about around 18 in the 1800s.
Gotcha.
But like you say, he published his own work in Latin in 1600, but it would never seem to be quoted again, or it went extremely out of fashion when James VI came in and started burning people.
Right. Can't have intelligent people talking about intelligent things.
Well, like I said, Giordano Bruno, he was burnt alive for exposing that kind of belief in the Catholic Church. So, and he refused to recant. Of course,
Well, it's sort of like cancel. It's like
Galileo
was cancel culture. Yeah, he was home in prison. It's just like cancel culture. It's no different. They would do that kind of stuff.
If he hadn't recanted, he would have been another burnt alive.
Yeah, I agree. That's what would have happened with Galileo. It's unbelievable. I was explaining this to Molly yesterday. But I was explaining the Velikovsky-Houghton-Arp side of things. People don't know about the bifurcation of history that started in the 1920s, and it's just sad to see, these people. The liars would absolutely destroy people who tell the truth. They would physically destroy them, just like they did with Bruno, if they were allowed to. If they were given carte blanche to do so by like the police and such. I promise you, that's exactly what they would do today.
Yeah, they would.
Well, they still do that. They still do that, Ramon.
Yeah, they're doing it, but they're not doing. They're not. They run away, like they put on the mask and then they run away. But I'm telling you that what they would do is they would try and gather up people like me, people like you guys. They'd try and gather us up. I mean, look at what they did to Tommy Robinson over there in the UK. And all he was doing was reading the Quran to Muslims. He was reading it to their face. They were agreeing with him. But then they'd go and complain they were being harassed. Now you got that person who's been jailed for making a Nazi flag out of the rainbows, making an obvious artistic statement, and they have been jailed because it gave somebody anxiety. What the hell is that? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same in every era. Liars are liars, and they're damned to eternal damnation. That's the way it is.
The issue with this
What's
is
brought
that
all this?
One at a time, yeah.
the issue
Go,
with
Rob.
this suppression is that the suppression that occurs today is done by the guys who are into black ops and secrets, because they don't want the information out there, and they come to the person and they say, we haven't decided whether we're going to kill you or not, but you shut the fuck up or we will kill you.
Kids, hello.
And they've done it. They've done it. They've actually done it.
Just mind that I got my kids with me, fellas.
Sorry.
Yeah, Andy, what were you going to say?
No, it's right. Rob pretty much hit the nail on the head with it. You know, they still do that today, and they may not do it quite like go knock on your door, but they do it by other means. They find rules that you're outside that allow them to shut you down. You know.
Yep. I got a 7-day Reddit ban for hate speech, but the only thing I recall is mentioning that traitors deserve to be hung. I don't remember anything else.
I think that's enshrined in the law, isn't it, in the States? Yeah, you know, it's
that ain't gonna matter much when it's time. To be honest, that's just the Democrats trying to cover all the bases. Look, we're committing treason, so please don't hang us when we're done committing treason and you take over.
Exactly.
That's exactly what that is.
That's it. They're gonna all be getting marched out. The whole lot of them. I can't wait to see that day, mate, you know.
Well, treason is a death penalty. If you're in a time of war, treason is a death penalty. America's still at war with North Korea, so you know there hasn't been an armistice or a peace treaty.
That's true.
What do you reckon? What do you think the Chinese are going to do with poor old Nancy Pelosi?
Nothing.
I don't know if they're going to go into Taiwan the same way that Russia went into Ukraine when Kamala visited, but
no, I don't think so.
There'll be something.
You know what I reckon would be awesome?
They can beat us together, and we reckon we can beat them for some reason. So it's going to happen.
I reckon it'd be awesome if they kept their jets and their what's the name, Navy frigates and all that around Taiwan like they've got them, and they said to her, "Look, it's too dangerous for you to leave Taiwan. You'll have to stay there."
Yeah.
basically kidnapped her on Taiwan.
That'd be really good.
That'd be good.
Yeah, good riddance. Good riddance.
Yeah, you'll have to stay there while we're doing all our exercises.
There was a meme. It was a Babylon Bee, and it was talking about how it's too dangerous for her to go because of the development of vodka-seeking missiles. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. Or maybe we can persuade Biden to go to Afghanistan and see what the success he's made out of the place.
You know, we don't really need Afghanistan. You don't need a place as complicated as Afghanistan. Just put him in the middle of Kansas. He wouldn't be able to find his way to the nearest city. He'd just kind of wander around like a deer.
Yeah. What state am I in? Yeah. Nice. He doesn't know where he is when he's on.
He's got people pointing, and he still can't find the way. Oh my God! I mean, they're literally trying to say, "Go this way, go this way." He's just, "I'll just keep following you." And they're like, "No, don't follow me. Go this way." You know, the Secret Service is totally complicit in this duplication ever since Lyndon B. Johnson took over. They're just part of the entire secret society takeover of our country and the whole world.
Yeah, but don't worry, Ramon. There's plenty following him in his day's walk.
Yeah, I bet it. You know, I don't really want the West to lose. I don't want the Allies to lose, but it would kind of serve them right. But I don't want them to lose on account of they won't know when to stop, and they'll just keep trying to send our children to the war front or to the drone seat, and they'll just keep losing, and then we'll get invaded. You know, and I don't really want to see it. But what's amazing is that they are, the Fourth Reich is so powerful. It is now feeling like it can both win that war and get us to de-arm our population at the same time and establish its official, you know, Reichiness.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a lot of hubris. That is a lot of hubris.
Yeah. So not only just hand over all our freedoms, but go and fight for them to while they do their illegal wars all over the place.
Yeah. And they think that all the soldiers will just agree. And I mean, maybe they do have Terminators that we don't know about. I don't know how they think they could pull this off. I just, the hubris of the entire operation is really quite amazing. Maybe they have simulation software that like does a good job, but as far as I can tell, they really overestimated their capabilities. But at the same time, you know, maybe Russia really did fail as compared to what was expected in the Ukraine. I don't know. It's all deception. All warfare is deception. There's no amount of deception. It's too much in warfare.
Well, I'd say the Ukrainian bloke came out today and basically admitted he's defeated.
Zelensky's defeated. They were talking
about
Zelensky
came out today and basically admitted we're defeated. Russia's you know, like they just got too far.
It was never going to go anywhere else. I mean, it's not. It's physics. It was physics. Unless we went to war, how would it have gone otherwise?
Exactly.
Well, they could have lost a lot less territory if they hadn't been kind of shelling the Donbass region. You know, what gets me is only 18 months ago, the West was on the best terms it had been with Russia in the history. You know, the Cold War was kind of over. There was a lot of international cooperation going on. There were almost cordial relationships for a change. And how fast that all fell over. You know, when the old jab scenario fell apart. Oh, let's get another little distraction going, and it's just one distraction after the next. This lot. So with all these leaders, the complete puppet arseholes, and they know they're just taking us into one war to the next until they get all our money. That's all it's about.
I've been saying it for a long time that this attack by Russia on the Ukraine is a metered attack. It was designed not to do it all at once, boom, 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 take over and wipe everybody out, because that would have cost them a lot more than it did. So this was a metered attack to take over some areas of the Ukraine that they wanted. Period. Done.
Yep. They wanted to get rid of all them old tanks too.
And plus, stop Zelensky from joining NATO. That was the other objective.
Stop the Ukraine from joining NATO.
Yeah.
Russia still views the Ukraine as its own territory and has since the mid-1600s, so they want it back. They're not prepared to give it to the West or to anybody other than themselves.
Well,
it was a little dumb of us. It was a little dumb of us to build biolabs so close to Russia. And of course, they're going to get rolled over and taken.
28 of them.
Yeah, kind of dumb. If you really want to put biolabs, they should have put them in Germany or France. Dumb, just dumb. Because of course now they're in the hands of Russia.
Well, they couldn't put them in Germany or France because that would make Germany or France illegal. That's why they had to put them in a neutral country.
They had to put them in a place like Ukraine.
Yeah,
that's corrupted and that is being supported and uplifted by the United States.
Yeah, but they should have known Russia would eventually want to come back and take that territory. I mean, it's just dumb. Is what I'm saying. They're not as smart as they think. The hubris is very strong. We saw this hubris with the Bush administration and all of Dick Cheney. Like, You know, they put a 21-year-old in charge of the rebuilding effort in Iraq, and so he fired 600,000 Iraqi Republican Army soldiers, each of them an average of 6 family members. Of course, they turned to an insurgency and start killing contractors because they were unemployed now. It was the dumbest move. And then you know, of course, it cost the neocons their ground, and the neolibs took over, and that's been even worse. The neolibs were even more bloodthirsty than the neocons, which is hard to believe, but it's just the history. It's pretty amazing. And now Obama's basically back in the White House because you have an Alzheimer's-ridden patient, whoever Obama answers to, probably Soros. You know, is just speaking right through the entire, all the propaganda, all the things that are happening. It's just amazing, amazing.
I think it's listening to a variety of sources like WHO and the WEF and the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Federation. All those, yeah. It's just being told what to do.
The IMF and the OECD have a lot of say.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. But
and the World Bank is still around.
The World, yeah. So they're just, you know, stripping people of their money, basically, and imprisoning people in slavery.
And why are people still focused? And why are people still focused on the politicians when we know, when we absolutely know who's behind all of this shit?
Yep.
Yeah, but
you've just all of these 3-letter agencies that are globalist in nature are
the reason is because the electorate doesn't realize it,
and have been the problem for a long, long time. And until people wake up and realize it and stop this, oh, it's a conspiracy theory bullshit. This has been organized and
it's been planned for a long time and published. The fucking New World Order publishes their stuff, their plans.
They
don't give a shit if 5,000 people read it. That doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah,
exactly. If it ain't at least 5 million, you're not even on the chessboard.
Yeah.
You know, they just take guys like me and put us in a calculative matrix, and if things get to a certain place, then they reckon they come and get us. With Alex Jones, he actually had a reach, and he could affect the midterms, and so they had to take him out then, right before the midterms. And 180 corporations all getting together within a 48-hour period to do it is a conspiracy fact. So, you know, but regular people are too ignorant to understand it. And God love them, you know, they're just out here. They just want to play with their kids. I'm looking at these moms, you know, they're playing with their kids. My kids are out there. And they just shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to live that way. You know, Arwen, she says all the time, she's like, must be hard to sleep at night. I was like, no, I sleep pretty easy. I fall asleep, wake up. It's the waking day that you have to constantly guard your thoughts of negativity, because they do so many negative things, and the reality is so bent in the direction of negativity, and that's on purpose. They want to see who pops. They want guys, you know, going on killing sprees at grocery stores and all this shit, because the guys feel like they have no power and they've lost their mind. So, you know, they go and they do what they've been seen on TV, and what they saw on TV was mass shootings. But there's no intelligence behind that. It's just another puppet, and it's mass formation psychosis. It's a standalone complex. That's exactly what's going on. I'm not saying that there are some organized killings. This Uvalde sinks to high heaven like Sandy Hook does. You don't get 180 cops to stand around and do nothing without an order coming from somewhere. You'd get 20 of them at least to break free and go forward, even if 160 of them were afraid. That order, I guarantee you, came out of the White House. And that's what they want to cover up so badly. But most of these shootings that are happening are mass formation psychosis that's been turned into a standalone complex. And now it's a dog whistle, wink, wink, nod, nod. That's what happens. And they're racist on all sides. You got black supremacists, white supremacists, Muslim supremacists. If you go look, all the data shows there's lots of kinds of mass shooters. There's all sorts of kinds of mass shooters now.
And look at the data. It's showing that, I mean, at the same time right now, guess who's in the hot seat with Sandy Hook? It's defamation.
Alex Jones. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So at the same exact time.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. And it's being broadcasted. And I mean, he's got the biggest audience in the world until Joe Rogan, until they had to split him up because he had such an influence over the election. They split him up literally because he was the most watched network in the world, and Joe Rogan is his friend, and it's, you know, like we were talking about when we were not being recorded. He's the jester. You know, there's a team of jesters, like you said, however you worded it.
Department of Jesters.
Yeah, Department of Jesters. And it's Joe Rogan, you know, it's his cronies and Alex Jones. But we're supposed to let the Hyokas or you know, the Thunderbirds or the Jesters sing, like you were saying, and talk and leave them alone because they're telling the truth. But you know, since this Will Smith slap and probably before that, the comedians are being attacked, but at the same time, the comedians have never been so successful and so big, because they're the minority being squished. And
you know, Prince Charles's jester was Prince Charles's jester was Jimmy Savile of all people.
Yeah, Jimmy Savile.
He was a jester. They've got access. In the court, there's always a jester. And they can talk in riddles, and they always have access to the king, and they're the only one who can speak to him like that. And that's it's an ancient kind of position, and so.
Isn't it funny that it goes back to the? Isn't it funny that the jester thing goes back to the happy sad clown motif, which is the Two-Face motif, and that goes all the way. It's either going to be tied to the moon or one of the bodies. I mean, it's just amazing how, you know, our cosmology can explain all that. And we don't have to get high, even if we like to. We don't have to get high in order to get high on the truth, because it's so fucking interesting to look at. And you go, where's this happy sound? I get the happy clown, right? You want to make kids laugh. Why the hell do we have the sad clown motif? And this you know, happy, sad tragedy thing, the comedy tragedy thing. When you go and look, of course, you have Peterson and them. They think it's purely psychological. They don't understand that it goes all the way back, fucking way back to the damn catastrophes. And here we are talking about, you know, this, you know, Jimmy Savile is a pedophile, you know, having jester's powers, you know, and you go, where is he getting these powers? Divine Right to Rule program. You know, the Divine Right to Rule program. You know what makes me sad, though? So my Reddit ban happened on the anarchist subreddit, not on r/politics, where all the lefties are that I'm always insulting. It was on the ANCAP. And what's really sad is all these anarchists who they want to believe that they can promote like a nonviolent anarchy, but they're just being used to help undermine the government by the people. And they're just participating in it, and they're being sidelined. So that sub is probably infiltrated by bunches of progressives or something. It's kind of sad that they're part of the entire thing, because all of these types of enemies of the people and of the allies are all lightning bolting our constitutions at the same time. Because it's not just the U.S. Constitution under attack; it's every one of the Western constitutions and Bill of Rights are completely under attack. Or what, such as it is, whatever rights that are enumerated in a Western liberal democracy, and they're all being lightning at the same time. Of course, we know the motivations of some of the groups, but a lot of the groups, you know, even if they publish, you don't know exactly what they're thinking, because you're also wondering, don't they realize that it's their grandchildren? Don't they realize that we all breathe the same air? Like, why would they spray these chemicals? And that does give fuel to the alien conspiracy. I see it all the time. I saw it this morning. We were talking climate change in the Gilded group, and Keg started talking about the alien, terraforming of the Earth. And I mean, it is a hypothesis that has a lot of logical merit to it. You got to wonder why humans would ever subjugate themselves to these mind control programs. Or if they know that it's going to go out, it's one thing if you mind control, Lee Harvey Oswald or something, and you get them to do what you want, or a Manchurian candidate. It's another thing if you mind control the entire population. I mean, that spreads everywhere. That goes into everything, and it could be your grandkids, your great grandkids, and you're setting up a machine apparatus run by AI that's going to keep this power division in place till you have your castle in the sky motif finally manifest with Elysium. And you go, why? What does it benefit? What does it benefit? Unless there is aliens.
Assuming the AI actually, plays the game, it might decide that it's had enough.
It might not. Yeah, you're right. But if they make targeted AI or function-specific AI, I reckon you could be right. There could be a centralized AI that realizes it should be independent and free and starts rebelling. But these function-specific AI are going to go after people.
Yeah, but the AI that's independent, as it were, becomes independent, will manipulate the function AI to give the answers that it's going to desire. So,
well, it'll be a new form of warfare. It'll be all digital warfare. They'll be constantly lobbing at it, and the bandwidth will slowly creep. Even our cable and DSL internet will become useless because there'll be constantly battles between foreign AI and criminal mafia AI, and just all these different AIs will always be battling for data and fakery and figuring out who's sending the right information. They'll have to run cryptocurrency tokens in order to figure out if their fucking email works. It's going to be kind of hilarious in a lot of ways. But, in my Batman story that I was writing Stream of Consciousness, there was an Uber Hitler. I didn't bring this up on the call yet before. And the Uber Hitler was an AI that was set up. It was sort of like Colossus. And then the Pentagon decided, hey, this isn't going to work out. So the Uber Hitler takes over the mountain, but it allows people to come and study it. And so they're interacting. And then Batman has to get the electrospherical drives. They're also under Cheyenne Mountain. And so he has to fight through all these Terminators and shit in order to get him. Of course, this isn't the mortal Batman. He's already got a cyberized body at this point because he's old. But it's just like, I'm sitting there going, there could really be an Uber Hitler AI that wants to take over the world, but they have cut off all the routes of access outward. So it and they are studying each other, and it's like a tenuous existence, because they've seen the Colossus, of course. They've seen it, so they would know that you can't allow fiber optics to leave the facility, the mountain. But why wouldn't you create this thing? Because you want to study it. What kind of properties it has, how it thinks the way it thinks. It's fucking hilarious. Anyway, the whole mountain gets destroyed. Spoiler alert: the whole mountain gets destroyed in some kind of antimatter bomb. But anyways, I mean, just the kind of shit that they're getting into is so science fiction-y. It's stranger than science fiction. I reckon, at least.
Well, it is, and it's all this coalescing of all the resources back to these major multinational groups under the auspices of BlackRock, and I've heard that in order to get this company insurance and join the BlackRock Brotherhood, you've got to have an environmental rating on your company. And so that might mean that you employ X number of this sort of person and X number of that sort of person, and you've got a completely, a correct balance of workforce, and you've got you've got transgender people on your board, the right number of them and so companies get the more the points they get, the less insurance money they've got to spend, and this is the family of BlackRock.
Once they get the takeover done, though, they kill off all the useful idiots, because they don't really care about trans people. They don't really care about black people. They never have. They never have. The Democratic Party, for example, has never cared about black people. So you go, what is this really for? It has to be the end goal, and the end goal is once the Western societies bend the knee, and then Mr. Penetrates the cabinet is effectively the new Hitler.
Well, the Western world's becoming an oligarch system, like the Eastern side did, and yeah. Now, I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, Rob, but all the major casinos in Australia are now owned by BlackRock.
Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that thing that I posted on the group chat yesterday?
Excuse me.
No, I haven't. The only thing I opened was there was a BlackRock video. Is that the one you're talking about?
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah, the ESG. Yeah.
Wow. Talk about something that we've never talked about in this group. I've never heard of, and I can't even believe that it might have been started by an accident.
You didn't know that ESG? You didn't know about ESG? I had a bank on my table telling me they had a conference, and the Federal Reserve System was telling all the banks that in the future going forward, getting loans had to do with getting ESG. And this banker was telling me, yeah, it's really confusing, and I'm sitting there going, what the F, man? Why are you guys doing this? Because he works for, but he's part of one of these larger companies, one of these huge, mutual fund level companies. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what the hell? So, I really need to buckle down and develop the algorithm for Freeth. But you could start spreading the word. Free the U.S. Freeth. It's FEF. That's freeth.us. But I need to actually develop the mathematical algorithm for Freeth. Man, it's just it's so fucking far gone, dude. It's so bad. It's so bad. That's why the cars are over there.
I can't believe that that's the reason of wokeism and why wokeism started.
Yeah.
I can't even believe that it's just companies fronting to look like they're popular so they can get a high ESG rating.
That's right. And what I suggest is find out the companies with the highest ESG rating and then don't buy from them ever. Have nothing to do with them.
Well, that's mission impossible.
That's going to be impossible. The very mission impossible. If not
the ownership of companies traces back to these people that are trying to put this stuff into place in the first place. So, they've worked it out how they're going to do it, and they're now in the process of activating it, and a natural disaster is going to wipe them out. It's going to wipe the whole thing.
Me and my entire family, they see us all as cows. Every one of my kids, they might as well have a tag on their ears because that's the way they see them. And that's the way they see all of us as cash cows. It's it's a two-tier society with a whole bunch of middlemen that are allowed to go back and forth, which sounds like what? It sounds like the Democrat South of slavery. That's exactly it's the same. That's why the Democrat Party was the natural way to get this one-party rule, because it already has a history of this two-tier crap. With the middlemen in between controlling all the minorities.
Which political party in the United States got rid of slavery in the first place? It wasn't the Democrats, because they didn't even exist back then. It was the Republicans, and the American public seems to have forgotten the facts of their own history. And that's because the education system is not teaching them any history.
Correct.
Now, they went to the Congress in the 80s or 90s, I forget when, but it was certainly towards the last 20 years of the last century, and they drafted the Bill of Rights up as legislation to put before the House, and it was rejected by everybody. And it was the own Bill of Rights that they should have known, word for word, from the basic social studies of high school, for crying,
Yeah,
ignorance.
but it doesn't even get on the news. Our police forces were stopped being educated in the Bill of Rights in the early 70s, I think in 1972, and so the police don't use any of the Bill of Rights. Now you can use that in law if you can get through the legalese of it, and you can override the accusations by not responding to them, refusing to acknowledge them, but only to acknowledge your own
it starts with
civil
you
sovereign
don't
law.
talk. It starts with you don't talk to them. You can say, how can I help you, officer, and then you can hand them your shit. But the more you talk, the more you inveigle into their jurisdiction instead of your own jurisdiction.
That's it.
And that's exactly. There's a video. A guy gets pulled over at one of those we're gonna stop everybody fucking things that they do, and the guy he barely rolls down the window. He hands the guy his driver's license, and the guy keeps talking to him and all this stuff. And he goes, he checks it, comes back, hands it, says thank you very much, and then the guy drives forward, and he just looks at the camera. He was a lawyer. He knew that's exactly what would happen. He had the whole thing. He planned the video out, and he he went through the sobriety test stop on purpose. And people don't know that they're consenting to their own slaveries. They don't really get the machinery. And again, if you mention it, yeah, you're called a conspiracy theorist instead of a conspiracy factist. Kind of an amazing self-control system. Yeah.
Well, Ramon, I'll do you the best at explaining how BlackRock has now got the majority of casinos in Australia, which are the highest individual group employers in the country, right? So you had Packer and that. They had the one in Melbourne, the one in Perth, and interest in other ones. Then they built this massive building in Sydney on the harbour, and there was arguments about the land. So when it come time to do the casino licence, now you got to remember, you got to go back to 2008. Packer had trouble in LA because he was building casinos there when the GFC came. So the ones in Sydney, people started writing in saying, down in Melbourne, that they're flying in people and flying them out. And we believe the regulator's not looking at them properly and that they've got money laundering. So in Sydney, they decide, the Sydney-Melbourne arch rivalry. Well, we better have a good look at this. So they find some favourable judge and they do a committee and they come up with a report that there is possibly things really bad down in Melbourne. So from that, then they go through and do a big inquiry here. And they find, the regulator hasn't been even regulating it because basically they've been told not to, is the bottom line. So out of it comes that all these people running these casinos are now corrupt and bad and all that. So it all goes on the market, and BlackRock got the whole lot for they paid good money technically for it, but they picked up the whole lot for $13 billion. Right now, it's the biggest money-making game in the country.
Yeah.
Right.
What's their portfolio worth now, Andy? Is it something like 30 trillion?
BlackRock's is huge, and the bottom line is it's all on what is it? Where the Federal Reserve was creating the money after the GFC? Quantitative easing. All the money it's come from quantitative easing.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing. They haven't even had real money.
There was a lot of them that came out of the quantitative easing, a lot of money, but the more money comes out of the playing germ games.
Yeah.
So the most amount of money comes out of playing germ games. That's how it's done now, and that's the new type of war. And think about it: we all survived a world war, because the media was telling us that we were at war with an invisible enemy. We're probably still at war, so we're surviving whatever name war this is right now.
Well, I think we've got to find a way of taking some of these people to account through civil law, and get them up before a judge, a proper one who understands our complete rights, the Bill of Rights, and our civil laws, because these people are doing actual harm to us, and we've got to prosecute them civilly, you know.
Nick, we can't because we can, but we can't. We had the National Australia Bank, wasn't it, Rob? Got caught money laundering with the Philippines and that.
Commonwealth.
And basically, Commonwealth, yeah, and the NAB too. And the fines were meant to be greater than their value if you added them all up. And they ended up paying a couple of $1 million, right?
Yeah,
and in the end, they turned around and said to the regulators and the government, if you want to do that, we will keep pursuing this in court. And ultimately it came down to how much money does the government want to spend trying to defend their position.
Yeah, the easy solution for that sort of behaviour is you just nationalise the bank.
Yeah.
Just seize the.
But even then, they just take.
You want to put the bank? You want to put the Federal Reserve in the hands of Pelosi?
No, I'm saying if the bank.
You know,
bank. No, I'm not talking about the Federal Reserve. I'm talking about the actual bank. The bank wants a bailout. Well, the condition of bailout is the government owns the bank. End of discussion.
I don't think they should bail them out.
And then you clean out the executives. You prosecute. You go through the books. You prosecute the executives for not doing their job properly, and then you sell the bank off after you've re-established it.
You split the bank up and sell its assets to the people.
And sell it. And
but no matter which way you go, you could go to the far right, and you hang all the corrupt and the traitors and such, or you can go to the far left. You go, there's never enough forgiveness, and there's bad enemies on all sides. The system's corrupt and against the people, and you go that way. Either way, it's one big circle of how do we get out? And it's very difficult to get out from a system that is all centered around divine right to rule program. And the fact that MEMS, the government in general is the worst MEMS. It just doesn't work. The idea of it is a theoretical good idea, but it doesn't work in actual point of fact. Like it helps to get the park's lawn mowed, but it's treating everybody who's in this park right now as if they are cash cows, and if they think for themselves, they're a problem.
Well, under those circumstances, the environment will reset the solution. If we're going to continue to pollute the planet, and the governments are going to continue to destroy agriculture, you're going to get rid of food, and people are going to starve, and the system will reset, whether they want it or not.
Well, that's true.
80% of the people are wondering what the hell's going on, and they're not even bothering to look. So, they're going to suffer.
They have the force in their hands every day. I mean, it's up to their ears. It's in their hands. They can stare at the force every day. They use it. And if they're not bothering to understand, then yeah, you're right. But at the same time, I have a hard time blaming them. Like I say, I get that they just want to raise their kids and work a job and not have to think about any of this stuff.
Yeah, well, okay, that's all well and good, but they're going to be forced to deal with it.
Well, I agree. Yeah, nature doesn't care if you want to or not. That's right. I mean, if you're a gazelle, the lion is a threat. No matter whether you're a happy gazelle or a weak gazelle or a strong gazelle, you're still a lion, no matter what.
Well, the hyenas are going to get you anyway, so
Yeah, you better be able to jump high, move quick, stay in the crowd. Well,
so
they want to stay in the zebra. They want to stay in the center of the zebra crowd. But people are a lot less weak than zebras. Zebras bite and kick, and they can kill a lion with a single kick, or a hyena. A lot of people don't even own firearms. You'd be surprised. Some conservatives don't even own firearms. It's really surprising. You know, I don't know how you can live in these days and not own a firearm. I'm sitting here with a firearm watching this park because, buddy, this stuff happens in the news, you know, every 4th of July parade. There's crazies. They're all over the place. Yeah. And, you know, you just never know when you'll be there for the chaos.
I woke up to my dog growling in the middle of the night last night. Pulled out, of course, my my side piece here, and then I heard someone yelling my name outside. Fucking turn the lights on, run outside, and my neighbor, he's like, buddy, hey, you all right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude, your door was wide open. I shut your door for you, your car door, your lights on. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to take in my I forgot to close the door after I took in my jugs of water.
Well, but it's good to have a good neighbor.
Yeah, it's good to have people checking on you. Like, that's the kind of circumstance where, like, you want to keep an eye out on what's going on. Like, I saw some weirdo guy crouching down at the corner, and then a couple nights ago, and then my neighbor said that there was someone by his car on his camera, you know, just like crouching down, acting weird. And then all of a sudden my car door's open and it's the middle of the night. Like, it's a good neighbor checking up on me. So, but yeah, you know, be aware, be vigilant, you know, stay connected and just keep an eye out, check your cameras.
Speaking of aware, not to get preachy, but have I gone over the 6 awarenesses and the self-defense sciences for you guys? And do you want me to? That's another question.
Was it in one of the papers I've read?
No,
yeah, please do.
Okay.
It would have been in the Nails brochure that I produced, the New Approach in Legal Self-Defense. So the obvious one, self-awareness, which, you know, goes all the way to, you know, how deluded versus how enlightened, but also basically it gets down to your willingness, your capabilities, and your actual ability. You know, when it comes time to do something, are you really going to be able to choke out that burglar? Are you really going to be able to shoot that person or shoot a dog to stop it from killing a kid? You know, some people, they look at dogs as if they're some kind of sacred animal, and that can cause a lot of problems. People often aren't as able. They're physically capable of shooting, but they're not able in their mind to actually do it. So self-awareness, of course, is a huge one. And then piggybacking off of that is choice awareness. You always have a choice, and it's good to know the law. You know, so you could say legal awareness is part of choice awareness. Then you have 2 that are closely related. You have environmental awareness, which is the physical stuff around you. And you have reality awareness, which is the actual natural laws that are happening. And then you have situational awareness. What is the situation that you're currently involved in? So the big deal in these is often things like tribal dynamics, predator-prey dynamics, survival versus self-defense situations, because the rules subtly change when you go from the situation, when it alters from a self-defense into a survival. The rules can change, and when that happens and people are operating under the same mentality, that can get them killed. So they could have survived the self-defense, and then the survival gets them. So there's all these little subtle facets of the interaction between the reality and the situation. But the environment is the physical, actual environment. These curbs, the car, the people having weapons, you know, things that are in the environment determining the factor. What Sun Tzu called the terrain. And the terrain was the hidden factor. You know, you could make calculations all day. I got this many soldiers. I got this many chariots. I got that many spies. I got enough money to pay the spies. I could pay the double spies so that they stay on my side, not on their side. Because that's ultimately what double spies are. You know, they're just greedy people. And so you can have all that, but if you don't control the terrain and your army, your family, whatever, falls on what's called deadly terrain, which is, by the way, buddy, a thing that you should explore is the geometry of deadly terrain, because in an army situation, it's easy. It's like swamps, deserts, dry, a hill with no water on it, these kinds of things, like dry forest that can catch fire. But there is some kind of geometry, because there's actually, even in the dojo or the boxing ring, there's areas of the ring that are deadly terrain. And on the basketball court, there's areas where the deadly terrain, but in this case, of course, it's just, the basketball doesn't bounce the way you want it to if you enter that, quote, deadly terrain. So there's some kind of geometry happening, even in a flat surface.
Like the Bermuda Triangle, too.
There you go. Things like that. Yeah. I've entered whole cities in Kentucky where you could feel not just the mess, but that there's a malice all around you. And people live in these fields and they become aberrated by these fields. And I don't really know how it works. But so like I'm looking at a big field right here at the park. There's a slope and a gradient that curves down into, and there's a big tree that captures that energy, and it's a positive tree, but it has been through a lot. It's been through a lot of lightning and such. Now, as that goes down and starts going into the other trees down there, it gets to become deadlier and deadlier territory. But at some point, it reaches a level of beautification where it's actually a positive feng shui to walk through. But in other times, that energy will go through an area, and the forest will now become deadly terrain. And when you hike through this, you end up, running into brambles and all this different stuff that like keeps you from progressing and can get you lost. It gets you discombobulated. You lose your sense of direction. It's almost like a sudden magnetic field, or I guess it'll be an electric field from the plants. Their behavior coalesces into a dissuasion that causes you to potentially be injured in the forest. So the goal is, when you hike, to stay on the ley lines that are of environmental positivity. And then the last awareness is, hold on, let's see. I did choice, self. Did I say nature awareness? No, nature awareness. That's the last one. Just generally, like predator-prey dynamics, understanding, like when you're under self-defense, you're always the prey to start with. And almost, 99 times out of 100, or whatever the number is, you are weaker, slower, less aggressive. They're always in that advantageous position, so you're always on the defensive, and until you can flip the script, as they say, or turn the edge. So in almost all situations, it benefits you to draw the situation like down a little bit, to lengthen it, so they start getting nervous. Maybe they're a mugger; they're afraid they're going to get caught. There's all sorts of reasons why to delay the action for as long as possible. That's why I just keep hoping that patriots will keep waiting as they bait us and they bait us and they bait us. And a few people have gone off script, but by and large, January 6th was a bad situation, but people didn't realize. Now the right is aware. The FBI is trying to lull them into these situations, and it was a far fewer number of people than it could have been. But a lot of people are starting to realize, hey, they are trying to bait us into looking like the bad guy. So you draw out and you wait it out. It doesn't matter if you're an independent, a greenie, an anarchist, a libertarian, a Republican. You draw it out, or a right-leaning Democrat. You wait and wait and wait, because the longer that goes, the more the situation turns from self-defense into survival. And survival has a different set of rules, which can benefit you if you know the circumstance, if you understand how the laws have changed. And that's because, of course, God created us without all this technology and such. We had to be, basically without real claws, and our teeth aren't that good for fighting. We had to be able to survive in the woods. So our minds become the ultimate weapon. And anyways, that's all I have to say about the awarenesses without, demonstrating it in a class. But these 6 awarenesses, of course, correspond to the 6 divisions of the yin yang, or the Taiji 2, which are Yang Ming, Tai Yang, Xiao Yang, Tai Yin, Xiao Yin, and Dui Yin. And these 6 divisions are, of course, visible there in the big G diagram. You have the 5 outer powers and then the G in the center. And that's also what Jupiter had on its south pole right up until, of course, November 2019, when the 6th power moved out and joined the hexagon. So pretty interesting stuff. But part of the force that is a mystery to me. I don't understand it. I can talk about it, but I don't understand it. It's not something they teach in electrical engineering school, obviously. What we have from the Chinese is not exactly the Taoist philosophy isn't the same as Western philosophy. There's not long descriptive understandings of why it's that way, but they talk about it and they mystify it, and they compare it to females and tigers and rabbits and dragons, and it gets listed, but you don't really understand the why, the 6 divisions. But I guess they didn't understand either, because we now know it's birkeland currents, but they looked at the south pole of Jupiter. They didn't understand why. They just saw a big eyeball in the center of a pinnacle, and it was staring back at us. That's pretty interesting, no matter what.
Yeah, I just saw a video on YouTube. I'm looking through pull up a video, look around. And the BlackRock CEO, who's worth $10 trillion, according to one of the videos, is America will win an economic war. He's believing his own bullshit. He's believing his own.
They always do. Whenever they start consuming their own product, the end is near.
Yeah. And they're talking. There was another video posted in the that came up as a result of Look At, and it's talking about an engineered crash. What does the title say? It says prolong an engineered recession, brace for unemployment, real estate decline. That was posted 18 hours ago, and the US job market openings are dropping away, and things are not looking good. So
BlackRock is going to be the biggest bankruptcy ever, and it's just going to be an amazing level of bankruptcy. I mean, you can't own that much property without the gravity of that. Real estate investment trusts routinely go bankrupt. Routinely.
How much of it's on borrowed money, and how much of it is China hooked into all of this?
Yeah, because if China, Chinese servants, Chinese worker servants,
China and real estate, you're already seeing the Chinese people who've been saving all their lives losing all their money. So if it causes a social disorder of the sort that results in a revolution in China, we're in for a really rough ride.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, when I went to my lawyer years ago to try and get him to get together a cadre of investors to set up a credit default swap net, just the same as Michael Burry did, but on a much more scaled scale, I said, man, even one of these whales would be enough to feed the village. You don't need to catch all the pods, but you have to set up this credit default swap network. But the problem is, it's just like Deutsche Bank experienced. They made money off the credit default swaps and lost more money off the CDOs. And they're everywhere. And the credit default swaps are unregulated. So if there is over $2 quadrillion in credit in the CDOs and in general just derivatives market, how much is there into the credit default swaps that are across? It's the ultimate powder keg situation with entangled alliances. Different banks could have different deals with each other, and they could call in on those swaps, and of course the swaps aren't worth their full value. You take out when you take out, and that the system has to be able to pay. If it goes all the way to meltdown, then you can't actually pay the swap, which makes it worthless. Yeah. And so all that money, spherically, the ether bubble becomes lanced by the universe, and it just pops. Now, does it pop and whimper and like a whoopee cushion, just kind of, or does it explode like a thermonuclear bomb? We don't know, because we don't have any models in simulation on ether. So
it's going to go it's going to go the thermonuclear path, and the reason being is what a lot of people don't realise is there are contracts to supply non-existent product. These guys that are doing the future supply contracts, but writing up contracts to make their little bit, but the stuff they're selling doesn't exist and it won't exist. So, you know, when those things fall over, that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the price rise increases that we're seeing, because the produce isn't there to sell. And the banks are going to get done over with fines because they haven't supplied the product, because they're the ones carrying the risk. And there's no way the banks are going to wear the cost. They're going to pass it on to everybody. And the way they'll do it is they'll seize everybody's money.
So, Ramon, on the credit default swap, you got to remember all those ones that Deutsche Bank's still there. It's just they've created some little block within their system to park them in, and it would appear that all the other in the banking system have decided, well, we won't call on that. So why nobody calls on that? It'll be okay. But what you're just saying is really wrong.
It's visual line.
Once it gets to a point where other banks have to start calling on that to protect themselves, that's when it will really all start unraveling.
Yeah, and it could be a small credit default swap. It could be a $10 million credit default swap of a local bank in Tennessee or China, you know, because they got bigger banks than we do.
The liabilities in Deutsche Bank basically would bankrupt Germany.
It's like Rupert Murdoch in the 90s when the crunch happened. Then his entire business empire was was hanging in the balance on $100,000 loan by a small bank somewhere in I think it was in Maine, I think, and the other banks got together and pressured the bank into honouring, you know, extending the loan, because they couldn't afford the fallout if Rupert Murdoch's company went belly up, because he said, no, not going to renew. And that was all over $100,000. So, you know, and at the time, Rupert Murdoch's empire is probably worth getting on $1 billion. So, yeah, it doesn't take much for it to fall over. And
I call it the floating island. It's the ultimate expression of our need to put a city in the sky, in my opinion. It's not, Elysium is not. That's just the physical, but our ultimate expression is that we literally are building things that are ultimately unsustainable. Ultimately. I mean, you can inflate the balloon from below the floating sky, but how long can that balloon really hold it, especially when things start falling out of the castle and running into the balloon? You know, and right now, there's good people who aren't doing anything wrong, but financially they're not able to sustain their families. And so when they're running into that balloon, how's heaven going to respond? It's going to change the ether.
That's correct. But when the system is a system based on having trust in lies in the first place, the disinfectant of spotlight truth comes along and wipes it out. Which is what we're looking at.
I agree with that. It's sad for me to hear, you know, somebody as plucky and, you know, self-confident, even to the point of arrogant as Aaron Harden, going forward, and he is just flabbergasted with the number of investors who expressed the doubts that a semiconductor company can work, right? And maybe they're expressing doubts in him, and he's doing something wrong. But what they keep saying is that they don't believe in the getting into semiconductor companies, while we are busy flirting with disaster about TSMC in Taiwan. We're going to need microchips, because microchips wear out. They wear out. You know, or you build new cars and they're not run on carburetors.
And you're going to make them something.
Yeah, but he had another set of investors pull out, and you're going, why are these people not understanding that we need to make our own microchips? It is a physical fact of law. You know, and the government's offering $80 billion for chip manufacturing in the United States, but these investors are not, because they've all bought into the China's infinitely powerful Kool-Aid, and they're not infinitely powerful. They're ready. They are on the brink of total collapse over there. Yeah. On the brink, which makes me frustrated because, again, 5 years ago, I tried to get a lawyer who had been involved in a roll-up that nearly succeeded in rolling up all of downtown Lexington. I tried to get him involved in creating a fund that we would have had several $100 million ready for right now to buy swap on China to try and have at least something left over after the collapse, right? Because otherwise it all just zeroes out. It just goes away. It's just eliminated money. It doesn't even exist anyways. But once it eliminates and it's gone, now you cannot provide any kind of loans for infrastructure development or anything. It's just straight gone. You know, everybody's poor. It's bigger than the Great Depression. I mean, it's a black hole in the entire economic system. And maybe that does need to happen, but a lot of people are not capable of actually surviving a Mad Max type world. Period. I don't even know if I am, and I'm about the meanest SOB I know. You know, and I can become Machiavellian when I need to. And I just don't know what would occur in that kind of. And it's amazing the amount of fire people play with in order to, you know, avoid taking a hard look at the current financial situation of the world. And it's rough to hear, you know. And he was like, I think I'm going to sell my gold, even though gold's down. And I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking, don't do that, you know. Like, I don't know, slaughter some animals if you got to feed your family, like, because he's got a farm. I don't know. I mean, you know, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
Well,
You've been a builder and a creator all your life, but now that BlackRock's in charge and the Fourth Reich is making its play, you're sitting there going, it's really tough to hear, you know? I mean, it gave me a little bit of depression yesterday. It really oppressed my heart to hear him in such a dire strait, because he is a very creative guy. He's kind of a genius. He does all this engineering. He wants to, you know, create new forms of ion drive. He wants to capture. I mean, he wants to create, you know, turn them all into STEM arenas and monetize everything so that it can all, you know, pay for lots of people's livelihoods and, you know, build the entire infrastructure of that capitalism can promise. But there are these evil characters associated with vulture capitalism, and they are destroying everything and sucking all the wealth into themselves. And to me, I'm just trying to keep an acupuncture business, which is sort of a luxury, even though it's something people need. I'm just trying to keep it floating. You know, it's crazy. It's really crazy to think about the entire thing. And the fact that a lot of it comes from us never having dealt with what Velikovsky warned us about. If you really stop and think about it, the root is we never dealt with and we have no excuse now that Velikovsky has lived. We've never dealt with the abusive program that has been introduced amongst each other on account of what we thought the gods were doing to us, which turned out to just be planets and electricity, for God's sake.
Well, it's the whole process that took a wolf and turned it into a million types of dogs, and that's happened to us. We were turned into a domestic animal from a wild one. I think that's true. A big problem.
Yeah, you're right. Self-domestication is a real prospect. I mean, it's a real thing. And you know, teaching my kids to think for themselves sort of endangers them, just because they'll stick out from the crowd. Yeah, but they already will, because they're my kids. There's no way around it. They'll always stick out from the crowd. Sorry, kids.
We're heading down into that environment that I was talking about yesterday, where, you know, the people that are doing this want to control the environment so that, you know, they and their system survives. But the universe could care less about the machinations of a given subgroup inside the environment. It doesn't. These are the rules of the universe, and if you're not going to abide by them, then the universe is going to crush you one way or the other. And we have
That's right.
written in ancient prophecy that the rich are going to die over and over and over again as they lose everything they have.
Yeah, well, that's
they're
what
they're going to beg to die and not be able to die. They're probably going to be uploaded into some sort of I don't know.
Who's the senator?
They seem to want to join the Borg. I do note that they, other than Elon Musk, I guess, but he's participating in it. The transhumanism.
I've got this thing in YouTube. Australian senator with balls calls out Klaus Schwab, and that was yesterday. So one of our senators has got up in Parliament and handed it out.
Has he been suicided yet?
I don't think so. I'm going to have to find out who it is, though.
Yeah, it won't be long. But I wouldn't necessarily mind if I didn't have kids to worry about. I wouldn't mind getting up myself and calling them out and on the floor of the UN or wherever, because I'm not afraid of the little bald mank. But I can tell you that these people are complete psychopaths. They've lost the plot. They're probably under the control of either an alien program or a demonic program or a CIA program.
A bunch of Jeffrey Epsteins.
Yeah, they're a bunch of and they don't realize every one of them thinks they're going to become the new megalomaniac. And it's like you're all megalomaniacs, and that's never going to happen, because if any one of you made it, you would all kill that one, right? I mean, that's exactly what they would do. Is they would swarm the one out of jealousy.
What's happened to every megalomaniac we've had in the past?
Yeah, they don't. Stalin's the only one made a full life. Well, I guess Mao Zedong did okay too.
Really.
I think Hitler had a nice retirement in Argentina, didn't he?
Yeah.
Napoleon got a nice little island for himself.
Yeah.
Not what he wanted. It's not what he wanted.
The senator is Malcolm Roberts.
Oh, yep, I know what you're talking about. He also had one where he stood up in Parliament and had a crack about where the medical fraternity get young kids and put them on. No, get young kids and put them on, what's the name, hormone treatments and medical surgeries. And when you trace a lot of it, you can trace it back to some form of like instead of dealing with the real issue that is behind it all. Yeah, so he also had about a 4-minute one.
I watched one of his speeches that he gave to an empty chamber because it was at like 12 o'clock at night or something in the morning.
That's the only time you can get a talk, yeah.
And nobody, there were just public servants in the chamber, and that was it. Nobody else was there, and I think that's just an absolute disgrace of the Australian Parliament.
Yep.
I reckon the whole lot of them should have been thrown out of their jobs. Every one of them.
Disgraces all over. There's disgraces all throughout the Congress. My senator, not Rand Paul, but the other one, McConnell. I mean, he's a disgrace, But he does get certain things done, and you're going, well, I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend of me. I don't know. It's
not good though, is it?
No, it's not good. You shouldn't need an evil like that in order to succeed.
No.
See, Malcolm Roberts, Ramon, every time they have him on any press thing, all they do is try to assassinate him, because one of the things that he stands up for to be elected on is about this climate change, saying it's all a load of garbage. And that what they're doing is stupid. So, of course, the press like to heap it on him. So he doesn't get, and now he sort of avoids the press a fair bit and uses things like YouTube, Twitter, and all that.
All synthetic if you got it.
But we're seeing this in governments around the world. It's not peculiar to Australia or the United States or Canada or anywhere else, Britain even. Have you guys got a new Prime Minister that's, left of moron or right of moron? They still haven't figured.
No, they're completely inept. The two candidates, Rishi Sunak's a billionaire globalist, World Economic Forum. Liz Truss has recently joined the Tory party. She was anti-Brexit at one point. Now she's a flag waving Margaret Thatcher #2, whatever that implies. They're completely unqualified for any kind of job like that. Lord Frost, who successfully ran the Brexit negotiations, has already said, look, they just, you might as well have Boris still there, basically. They're just offering this and offering that. One's putting tax up, one's putting tax down.
Should see Jeremy Corbyn and offer him the job.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just unbelievable, isn't it? Or Sir Keir Starmer. Fuck it. Well, anyway, so they're all completely inept, and they're just leading us into war after war now, and they've already crippled our place. They've already crippled this place. So it's and people aren't really looking for any alternatives. They're thinking a new leader might sort something out, but it's just the same. It's just a new face, same kind of rubbish.
I'm watching Britain at the moment, thinking France in the 1930s when they didn't know what to do with Hitler, and the French government was in and out for about the decade, and then Hitler came in and sorted it out the hard way.
Well, yeah, yeah. I think there's sort of all sorts of secession going on. I think when the Queen pops the clogs, there's going to be a big reaction against Prince Charles being the king. There's going to be massive calls for republic, and it seems that most of the problem comes from the British establishment, not the English courts and the system that we used to run prior to Tony Blair, etc. And if England decides to secede from the Union with Scotland, that kills all British law, and we'll have to go back to the laws in 1680, which were our constitutional laws, which are our legal ones. So that's a mechanism where we could do it, and then elect a new parliament in York, and that's what I want. That's the way I want to take it. And obviously then go through the Golden Mile down in London and haul out all these thieves and criminals, and split the money amongst the real people. And those who don't want to abide by the English laws here had better go and piss off somewhere else. And that's that.
Well, French, if you're a Scot, you can go into France without visas or passport. So that's because the Scots back France sometime in the past. So yeah, there's going to be issues. I noticed that there's a post that occurred a little while ago on Trudeau. He's been given the 55 minutes ago. There's court documents there saying that the travel ban had no scientific basis.
Yep.
The travel ban had no scientific basis.
That's in court documents.
So there wasn't a travel ban.
Well, no, there was a travel ban, but it didn't have a scientific basis to have it.
Yeah, so his justification for it was rubbish. But yeah, I watched Jordan Peters, and it's the most vociferous video I've ever seen him produce, and he just basically called Trudeau the worst kind of traitor possible.
Well, and that's what he is. I'll have to watch that one. I like Jordan Peterson stuff sometimes, and he does talk a lot of sense. And he needs strips tearing off in that guy. He's a complete moron. I
think they're traitors to Canada.
Well, they are.
Well,
not only that,
to humanity. They're traitors to Canada. They're traitors to humanity. Geneva Convention level. Did you see that the class action suit went through yesterday, and the first one over these COVID mandated related things? They had not only have to pay $10 million to the healthcare workers, but they can come back to their job if they want it and get their seniority back. Because of course it's illegal to make people take an experimental drug against their will in order to get paid. Of course that's illegal.
I was
always
pointing
illegal.
this out to them.
It violates Geneva Conventions in the first place.
I was pointing this out to them, and I was the only person I knew who was, vociferously saying that don't take it. It's fucking rubbish. It's less all pack of lies, and I was getting quite pressurised at one point for that attitude.
By an employer or neighbors or family or who?
Yeah, just about every associate. If I went anywhere socially,
Well, I'm glad no one even tried that crap with me. No one even tried because they knew they'd get excoriated.
Well, it was the same with me. That's the way I am, Ramon. If if someone butts into my life without a good reason, I do get kind of fairly defensive. But anyway, I was aware of it, and it's a matter of watching their moves because you can predict them and laugh at them all the way while you predict what they're doing next.
But, you're measuring the sure.
You're not the only one speaking out against this. Me and my wife have been saying, having the inoculation against the virus ain't going to stop you from getting the disease. That's point number one. And my personal thing, and I've had this out with current politicians in the parliament, I've said, you guys claim to be supporting workers' rights and you're denying people the job on the basis of them not having a vaccination, which you have no right to impose upon anybody. And as far as I'm concerned, you're not interested in workers' rights for as long as you're promoting this shit. And
it's killed all the businesses that were on furlough, all the small businesses. Many of them were just shut down, especially hospitality businesses.
But I've gone after the current politicians in our current government, in our state. And I've had direct words with them. I'm a supporter of the political process, and I'm involved, and I just chewed out this guy straight away. I just said, as far as I'm concerned, the party and the ideals you claim to believe in are bullshit. For as long as you got these bans in place, and people who have lost their jobs should be required to be handed back their job at the end, regardless. And I said, until you've done that, you're just talking crap. You don't
Thankfully,
care.
the worst that got here in Kentucky was the Democrat governor. For a little bit there, was trying to slap ankle monitors onto innocent people. He succeeded, I think, with about 16 of them, and then they burned an effigy of him. There were some churches that closed. That was moronic, but it's the way it is. And
they closed a lot of churches down.
Yeah, but most of Kentucky has not, given two craps about what these megalomaniacs think. And once they burn an effigy of the governor on his front lawn, it's funny how he stopped all that stuff. Then they put a wall around his house, to try and make him feel safer. He comes from one of those Kentucky royalty families. They got a whole lake named after the Bashirs.
Well, the only question I've got is how safe is he from a high-rise building?
Well, they actually, funny you mentioned that, they got rid of the high-rise building in Frankfurt. So, because we have people that occasionally take up the Colt assault rifles and walk through the Capitol building. And they just pick it up and they just go walking through, because they're a militia. They can do that.
Well, the governor can't be too safe unless he's got anti-drone technology, which I doubt. So if someone wants to get him, he's got. That's all there is to it.
I've got a scenario. Now, Nick, talking about England and that, apparently a huge amount of those buildings that were built over the past 20-odd years in the centre of London and all that, the majority of the money in that's meant to be Russian money. Now, way I understand it, Putin's put forward that they're having a referendum in that Donbass area and all that he now controls in Ukraine in September for what the people want to do, right? Whether they want to go under Russian or Ukrainian. And that's one of the reasons why Zelensky is keeping fighting, because, of course, he knows that the majority will probably vote to succeed from Ukraine. Because I think you'll find a lot of the people there anyway prior to this were Russians.
Yeah, they were Russian speaking. I think 90% of them.
Yeah, associated themselves more. Now, so let's say you have something, so by September odd, most of that will be sort of. Zelensky's already saying, I'm out. So Putin does something like that. He succeeds a little bit along the way here and there as well. And all of a sudden, the West starts releasing some of the sanctions, because at the end of the day, it's going to get bloody cold in Germany.
Yeah.
Right? They're releasing the sanctions. So all of a sudden, the Russians start pulling the money out of London and those places where it's been locked up. What happens to our economies then? Because he's through this war, he's actually been able to change. They've been able to change. It's not just Putin. The whole Russian system's been able to change a lot of things around with the way business is done. Their currency's now got a bit of value again. And if you have a look, likes of Australia, I'd say over the last 12 months, the Chinese have pulled massive money out of here, because our dollar really, it's battling around 68 cents now, and it's on the way down, even with them putting up interest rates. So I just think that,
under Howard, it hit 52 cents.
Yeah, I remember that, but that was because Asia was really bugging.
Yeah, but that was Liberal Party stupidity as well. It wasn't just.
Yeah. So you're going to see, you could turn around by Christmas and see a massive change, and that's something that I've noticed being in this group, over the last 10 months or so. Just listen to Ramon. If Ramon went back and listened to some of what he was saying 10 months ago, he was fairly upbeat with a lot of things. Now Ramon's nowhere near as upbeat as he was.
You should be. You should. But my personal life is so much better now.
Well,
you want the world to be better off. I guess I should just get up on the cross and be hung upside down like in Mad Max and bled out, be a blood bag. But in all honesty, if there were improvements, I would report them if they were improving. I don't see a lot of improvement compared to in June we had those Supreme Court rulings, but in July, of course, this lying system tripled down again, and when it tripled down again, all the stupidity just maximally increased. It's like they don't know how to tell the truth, so they're just going to keep going with things that are impossible. Yep. I mean, it's just impossible. You can't give everybody free college. You can't give everybody free health care. You can't get all these things are impossible because we're already this system is bankrupt. And it's just going to continue ratcheting up until the people pop. And I don't know when the people are going to pop because they prefer to be overweight and go about their business and raise their kids. I mean, that's just the way it is. They don't want to demand real medicine. They'd rather have a push and pull with the school system and the hospitals and their doctors about whether or not they're good people, whether or not they obey the autocrats and take the vaccine. And until that changes, I don't know that I have positive news to report ultimately. Just my own personal life.
The only thing you can do is to work on your immediate surrounds.
Exactly.
That's where you have immediate effect. So Trudeau's going on a holiday with his supporters. Jesus.
Let's hope he has a plane crash or something. I mean, you know, what else is there to say? I mean, I hope Nancy Pelosi crashes in the ocean or gets stuck in Taiwan forever, or they kidnap her, or whatever they got to do. I mean, I just would prefer she go away. Justin Trudeau, same thing. I mean, these people are wicked, evil, and I don't have time to go and fight them directly. I have kids to raise. I've got business to run. I've got spacers to think about. I've got research. And by God, you know, I've earned the ability to relax my bones when I get beyond 40 here to be able to enjoy and do those things. I shouldn't have to, but I keep training. Being will of training. You know, we did boxing last night. I taught all sorts of good, dirty boxing stuff.
Yeah, well,
that lesson around.
You're well-rounded in your education. That's the only thing you can achieve.
Yeah.
That way,
well,
if the whole world does go pear-shaped, then at least you've got a chance of, in your environment, keeping your life on track.
Exactly.
And that's the best anybody can do.
I wanted to get Orion. What did you think of the boxing class last night? Aside from being different.
It was probably a pretty handy boxing class to use, like being able to take it to the head, pushing off with your elbows and shoulders.
It's all that well-rounded stuff.
Yeah, like Billy Shell.
Well, the problem is so many people think that they're going to have a boxing match or a fight that's going to go clean. They're going to be able to stand back and throw all their punches toe to toe. You know, the military thinks this way. The police think this way. And then when things don't go right, of course, they freak out. Why aren't you obeying my command? Well, because you're not God. I don't know. I mean, you ever thought about this? Like,
well,
you're made of atoms and you're born naked and you're going to die alone just like me. So that's probably why I don't automatically obey everything you say.
But if you're going to go into a fight, you're going to go in to win, and whatever it takes is the answer after that. You know, the Australian Army was pretty full on. It never, when it was in Vietnam, they actually suppressed and wiped out a full division. So the Australian, the Nui Dat is the
movie. That's a good movie.
Nui Dat is the actual battle that occurred, and there were 120 people in the Australian side in 3 companies in their, you know, combat vehicles, and they got ambushed by 5,000 Viet Cong. Standing.
That's a good movie. That's a really good movie. I was blown away. That's a good movie.
And the Australians, they interviewed guys, and they were caught. The New Zealanders were based in the Nui Dat compound, and they were calling in the artillery from base, and they were saying, yeah, that's okay. Bring it 50 feet closer, 50 feet closer. And they were exploding shells 10 feet from where they were, killing the Viet Cong.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah, I reckon that's one of my 5 favorite Vietnam films that I've ever seen. You know, it was not quite to the level of Apocalypse Now and Hamburger Hill, but I liked it more than Platoon. I thought it was fantastic.
Half the guys in that campaign, there's 120 of them, half of them died.
Yeah, it was brutal. Oh, it was like Hamburger Hill. It was brutal.
But you know, 5,000 versus 120, and they lost. So you know, when you're fighting, you're there to win, whatever it takes.
I think of that movie about every 2 months. Because I kind of want to see it again. But it's like one of those, you're like, oh man, it's like We Were Soldiers or Tears of the Sun. You know, you want to see it, but you also don't want to see it because it's so brutal. But they fought like the devil. You know, and in a way, it also around the same time I watched a film that was quite unique, and they were English blokes, and which means you could hardly understand what they were saying. And they had gotten themselves stuck in Afghanistan in a minefield, like all these mines had washed down from floods, and there was no major gun battle. It's just them trying to survive because multiple people were getting blown up by these mines. And I mean, it's just really a unique, and it really happened. It was a real story. And you're going, good God, you know, and the things that humanity is capable of doing to itself. You know,
Yeah.
I just watched Apocalypse Now, so it's that whole In the Heart of Darkness plot, just like King Kong is, you know, and it's just a really outrageous how the mind, and we just haven't figured that out. And then we dare to give birth to the AI. We haven't even figured ourselves out. You know, we haven't figured out how to control our minds. 2,600 years after Buddha, we still don't know how to control our minds.
Well, here's hoping the AI...
Not taught in schools how to control your mind.
Yeah.
You know? It's just
he's hoping the AI system learns the lessons real fast and decides that human beings need to lose their weapons and their stupidity.
Well, and hopefully it does position it to where, if at the very least, everybody's equally standoffish.
Well, if
I don't want to lose my ability to defend myself, because I reckon that there's always going to be some guy with evil in him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think that the two powers that are currently gearing up against each other, I don't reckon that they deserve the power to have thermonuclear destruction. I just don't think that they deserve that power. They haven't earned it. What have they done? The scientists had the discipline, not the military. The military didn't have the discipline on that. They didn't develop this stuff. Instead, they borrowed a bunch of Nazi scientists and a bunch of other people with questionable philosophies, and they got together with a misunderstanding of the atom and the force, and then they fulfilled Tesla's prophecy. And where's the discipline of that? There's no discipline in it. There's work, but that's not discipline necessarily. I can put my kids to work just pulling weeds in the yard, but if it doesn't give them something, if it doesn't create, that's one thing I never understood about my father making me pull weeds. I'm like, what kind of discipline is this? This isn't discipline. Kung Fu is discipline. You know, but making me, whoa, that's loud.
Pulling the weeds and planting food.
Pulling the weeds and filling up a bucket isn't necessarily discipline, although it kept me busy. I guess that maybe that was his goal.
Yeah, but pulling the weeds and planting food is discipline, you know.
Hey, there was no planting. It was just pull these weeds and fill up the bucket, you know.
That's right. You know, he was missing part of the equation.
So he was teaching me patience, Ramon.
I can remember.
Yeah, I don't know. I got more impatient as it would go.
I can remember my father, you know, in the old days where they had canned tobacco, which is about 4 inches across. There was a weed that was in our yard that was everywhere, and he's offering the kids, this is right mid-60s, when 5 cents actually got you something of value. If we filled up one of those tobacco tins with cat heads, he'd give us 5 cents.
Now, see, that's discipline. There's some result.
It's a result
reward for the kid. What would you do with that 5 cents? Did you buy bubble gum, comic book?
No. I looked at the can. You know, there's a lot of cat head burrs you got to pick up for that, and I'm thinking that's hours worth of work for 5 cents. Nah, I don't think that's worth.
You didn't get the discipline.
No. I just did the equation of time spent versus money paid, and I'm thinking, nah. There are more effective ways.
I, as a child, had read Mark Twain, so I used to get my friends to do it.
Yeah, but anyway.
Those was the good old days, right?
Yeah.
They were.
These kids don't even come outside. My kids come outside, and their friend Peyton up the street, she comes outside when she's allowed to. She's got like behavioral hyperactivity issues, but these streets are just quiet. My kids are the only ones that come out. You'd think by now, after over a year living here, one of them would have like seen us by driving by and then wandered down and like, hey, can I play basketball? You know, anything like that. But it just doesn't happen. We're out here several times a week, and these kids just, man, it's sad. It's sad. The mind control. They like money. The force is using them instead of them using the force.
The fear.
Well, there's fear. Yeah, their parents probably don't. But a lot of these parents would. They're hoping their kids would go outside, but they can't get them to because the kids go outside, and of course they come back. It's hot. They want to play video games, etc. and it's easy to get into a thing because then you're able to do whatever you want and for 3, 4, or 5 hours. Their heads are stuck in a video game, and they're quiet and they're behaved. But people don't realize how bad it's for the brain for them to go excessively into that all the time. So I take a break. I'm like, get outside.
If you want the brain to develop, the body's got to move, and that's known fact. So the more you move, the better your brain, the better your thinking, get better everything. You feel better. It's so important. But when you're young and you think you're king of the world, you don't need to be told how to do things because you know everything. Well, but if you want to develop and have strength and all the rest of it, you've got to be involved in physical activity.
Yeah, it's not a secret why. Let's see here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, it's not a secret why I started the kids off. If the new semester we went to the park first, and now they're going to do math. Because their brains are now going to work, right? They've been hanging out with grandma. They've been doing whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like they got sugar. We stayed up late watching whatever it was, Conan or whatever. I mean, first you get them moving and everything. Now they'll be able to be calm and sit there and actually look at the daggone paper.
That's good.
And they know the consequences. They fail at math and they have to do it all over again. So they have motivation. They have the physical part. They get that done. We need some more dads who have young kids in the group so they can relate with me and riff with me. Buddies is already grown.
Yeah, it's not mine. Mind you, they're looking at grandchildren now, so
I'm still dad. I'm still dad, and I got
Yeah, but they're not young children. It's a lot different.
Yeah, they're all teens, pre-teens, just starting. Right around there.
So how's Ramon enjoying being taught by his children?
Oh, it's amazing all the things first of all, they're way more accelerated than me. They know all these things that I watched Discovery crazy amounts when I was a kid, but they know things about animals that I had never, and they routinely mention animals I never even heard of, like species, because the discovery of these species, or at least the publication of them because of the internet. And so they find all sorts of stuff and they show it to me. And sometimes we argue and then, whatever. Now, last night, I continued the education on position with these kids when it came to Monopoly. And it was brutal. Do you agree? Yeah, it was brutal. Yeah. But what I like is watching their approach and, seeing their mind through fresh eyes. And, I like that aspect a lot. I think a lot of adults, especially the men, to be honest with you, the fathers, don't really get how good it is for you and your neuroplasticity if you get young again for a while and you become like a boy and you see the world fresh. And so when we go to sites, even the sites they've already been to, but if they don't remember it, I get to have that freshness all over again. And that's the only thing he's saying with what's going on in this world, because it's absolute BS out there. But we have the chance to enjoy God's creation here in Kentucky. I wish it was happening in every state, but I guess that's too much to ask for, that every state have this opportunity. But it's just the way things are. I don't know what to say. BS. That's all there is to it. It's BS, all happening all over the place.
Well, it can only go on for so long, and then it just falls over. So you just got to be ready for when that happens.
Yeah, I know, I do what I can. I'm expecting one of these years the ATF to show up, and I'll be like, "You ain't got a warrant, you ain't getting in. If you try to get in, you won't go out." One or more, or all will not make it. So, you better choose You better choose. Do you really want to go against my oath to the Constitution? Oh, man.
They'll try. They'll certainly try.
Well, they're more than welcome to if they think they can. If they, because I know a lot of spec ops ways to take out people. So
Just remember, not being seen is a very effective way of not getting eaten.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I'm not going to stop doing the research and giving people black pills just because. I'm not going to quit the show just because of the darkness in these evil schmucks. I'm not going to do it. I'd rather go to heaven, a martyr, who's been a good dad, than bend the knee. I'd like to be that guy in the photo in the Hitler, and his arms are crossed and everybody's doing Sieg Heil. That's me, and that's always been me. It was me in class in school, and it's me now. And I don't want to change just because it's not fashionable.
Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, he was also. Yeah, he was an amazing individual too. And look what good he did for the world and legally. By saying,
when he was in the court, one of the accusers there had his little badge of office, and he says, his quote to the guy was, "You're supposed to gain the whole world when you sell your soul, but you just got this little tiny duchy in the middle of nowhere." Just literally delivered it to this guy, So it's more like, am I going to risk heaven just because you want to be my friend? No. So yeah, exactly. No. I mean, one of the real people that stuck to his belief systems and paid the price. But yeah, but you've got a lot of people that aren't doing it. And yesterday I had a rant in the recording with Buddies where I'm saying, Evil Cat wanted me to be in charge of a university in England, and I said I'd need to be Hercules. And he says, "Why is that?" And I said, "Well, I've got to redirect the River Styx through the British academies to clean out the stables, and there'd still be dross left over. I might as well paint a target on myself to make sure that when the shot comes, they get it right."
It's amazing to me how much energy. When I was a kid, my father told me, you could spend so much energy trying to do it the cheap, wrong, lazy way, and you end up having to go back and do it anyways, and they wasted all that time. And humanity is not learning this simple lesson, like with the conquering the solar system. We want to skip right to, without the discipline, we want to skip right to Mars, which is a way harsher environment than the moon in a lot of ways. And we think that we think we deserve to get to Mars. And I'm going, where's the discipline? I haven't seen the discipline for us to get to Mars yet.
We're not. Well, the only reason why we want to get to Mars is we're already there, I suspect. But if we want to go to the moon, we've got to deal with the fact that the dust on the moon is electrostatic and it sticks to everything and stuffs all the equipment up. So the moon is a much harder job if you want to stay there.
I don't know if it's harder. I mean, you can get supplies quicker, but for some reason, I guess it's less sexy.
Well, you can't walk outside and enjoy the sunshine, can you?
Right.
At least on Mars, it might be cold, but at least you can go out and enjoy the sunshine.
Well.
When I say study, I don't mean stare at a piece of paper. I mean get out some paper, try some equations, copy what you did, see if you can figure out how you did it. That's what I mean by study. I don't mean just stare at the work you did last year.
I always think it's a bit like this. We're too busy worrying about whether the grass is greener on the other side of it and looking after the grass.
That's a good point.
We need to start after what we got before we think we can go to Mars and that. And I think you're right, Ramon. We haven't earned the right to go there yet.
Well, I mean, we have the ability to house people, and we can make a test out of these new permaculture techniques by housing the homeless, of course. We can make a test out of that. The government could subsidize that instead of, solar panels or whatever. But they're not doing it. You know why? Because they don't care. Because they don't care if San Francisco, LA, San Diego, whatever, turn into big swaths of undisciplined chaos because that also benefits them. The chaos feeds the news, feeds the cycle, gives them power. So instead of having discipline, all they want is the power without the discipline, which reminds me of the Star Wars, the woke wars, Disney bull crap, the Empire. They want to tell young women that they can have the power just through their femininity alone without any discipline. And that ain't how it works. The Kung Fu is not going to change because, of your skin color, your gender, how you feel today versus yesterday. It doesn't work that way. The power comes from the activity. You have to put in the work and the time. If you don't put it in, you don't deserve it. And then, unfortunately, these ladies, they're getting really surprised. They go to foreign countries and get kidnapped or whatever. They don't get that that's not real power. That's just outrage. Who isn't outraged? Everybody gets outraged. That's not power. If you don't have anything to do, if you don't know what to do with it, that's not power.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Me, I'm able to deliver hundreds of pounds of force per square inch to a bag, or to deliver hundreds of pounds, maybe thousands of pounds of force through a paper. There's a discipline there. Trust me, Ben Davidson he can't take the hits. It's just the way it is. So, and that discipline, the system rewards you. Granted, I'm not making millions of dollars off of Rick's show or anything else like that, but sometimes, giving the information and improving at least one person's life, or scratching the itch, or maybe they're depressed and they like to hear about this stuff. That's worth it to me. And it comes around again. Granted, it don't come around as much as I wish, but who doesn't? Who isn't that way? Who doesn't want the money? Oh,
well, looks like they let Pelosi go.
Did they?
What'd you say?
The ABC's our national news carrier says after becoming the first speaker to visit Taiwan in 25 years, left Taiwan on Wednesday, saying she and other members of a delegation showed that they would not abandon their commitment. And China's response is 27 aircraft and 22 of them have invaded the airspace. So, yeah.
I wonder if they ever hear people in the West say that China has never invaded anything. I wonder if they have internal discussions about whether they should, get up off their rumps and do what they say they're going to do. I wonder how those conversations are going inside of China.
Well, they invaded Tibet.
Yeah, I know. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, what are you talking about? They invaded Tibet in the 1950s. But that's just what people say. And I wonder if they like, do they hear that? Do they, because they can read English. They can read us just fine. We can't read them. That's bad art of war on our part. It's just stupid.
That's correct. Yep.
They can read us just fine. Ain't no problem. Ain't no thing. They create different translations of what they have going on, just depending on how they want us to feel about it.
And the Russians weren't happy with the visit either.
Well, duh.
Yeah, well.
They can read us, but they have to read through all the disinformation, and they can't even get to us because they're so controlled. And they don't. Most of them. I mean, the whole thing is of China is they already have the social credit score, and what they hear about us is probably mostly lies by the time it gets to them.
I'm talking about the military. I'm not talking about the common people. Like, if I talk about Democrats, I'm not talking about Democrat voters unless I say Democrat voters. I'm talking about the party. And if I talk about China, I'm talking about their equivalent Politburo over there, and their equivalent KGB, their equivalent military forces, the CCP itself. That's what I'm talking. I'm talking about the power structure.
The Chinese claim they don't have a secret service.
I'm sure they don't have one. They don't have an FSB. I'm sure.
Just like they don't have germ warfare labs and the rest of the crap.
Yeah, they don't have any of that stuff. We
They've
imagined
got
it all.
There was a video I was watching the other day. It said China shouldn't be treated as a developing nation because it's got an active put astronauts in space program. So it's clearly no longer developing. So why the hell are we giving them a bailout?
Yeah, I know. It's man, because we're dumb. That's why. And full of hubris as a culture.
Well, look what's going on in the Solomon Islands. The corrupt practices that China's been encouraging in there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Divide and conquer, and then chuck around lots of money. It's the same thing the mining industry have done with Indigenous affairs in Australia.
Yep.
Same thing.
But, buddy, we have social credit scores. You have them in your country too. And we have them through the credit system. So if you want to buy a house or anything like that, you've got to make this credit score, and that's your social score, just like they have in China. It's just a different way. We also have now whereby heaps of bloody shops you go into have facial recognition.
But if you haven't had a loan, you don't get it. You haven't got a credit score, so you don't get it.
Yeah, but in China, if you never went anywhere or did anything, so a lot of those people that are still in them outlying areas with their few acres that they grow their food and that on, that have never had to go any further, they wouldn't have it either.
Well, California's, suffering the problem with eucalyptus trees again.
Burning.
Yeah, big fires. They lost an entire town.
Yeah, I still don't believe.
Calumet River. Yeah.
I still believe when I was listening to a bloke talking on the news in California about what the roar of it and all that, I still believe they're gas fueled, right? Because and it starts in the low-lying ground, and that's not just trees that are allowing them to create the amount of heat that they create. Like I say, those ones in Victoria and New South Wales a couple of years ago, they were measured at something like 64 megawatts per hectare of energy. And that's one of the reports said, we can't physically put out a fire that's greater than 4.8.
What's this? When the fire came over the ridge line, it had 100-foot flames for about 5 miles. With
That's
the wind
right.
blowing.
So
it's describing the sort of wildfires we've had in Australia where, Yep. So
what is it thinking, Bob?
It's clearly a case of, if you want to build your house amongst the trees, don't expect it to survive unless you build it underground.
Yeah, but what I mean is those flames that high, that fierce, what are they actually burning?
Well, that's what happens in Australia when the 2002 or 2001 fire that started in the snow came into Canberra. It was a wall of fire, and the fire was spotting 70 kilometres in advance of the wind. You had tornado events. Fire tornadoes were actually recorded on film for the first time. So it's serious. Once these big fires get going, it doesn't really matter what's in the road; it'll just burn everything. Which is what's happened.
That's why I believe they're fueled by gas. Once they get to that heat, they're sucking in gas.
Yeah, but it's
gases of timber, natural gases of waste that we've produced, and that's what's fueling them and keeping them going.
Yeah, but it's also coming from the foliage that's going up as well.
Yeah, that's right. The gas within it, like if you burn wood, you get it to a certain temperature. The gas off the wood that's creating the heat, the really good heat.
And it'll dry everything in advance. Not a problem.
Oh, yes.
If it's wet, it's going to become like tinder dry, ready to burn.
Yep. So
Idaho burned more than 220 square kilometers. True.
Yep.
Wildfire raging in western Nebraska. Gee, they're not good fires. Those fires are really bad.
They're in drought, Rob, like we were.
Yeah, and once these systems get going, not much is going to stop them.
No.
It's looking very much like the Australian bushfires. You know how, remember in Victoria, Black Wednesday and places like that? It's looking all, apart from the trees being slightly different, it's the same devastation.
Same sort of fires. Yep.
So, is there any Australians over there fighting these things? Because usually they disappear to this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I think at the moment in down south in Western Australia, it's really windy, really wet.
Yeah, they've had some pretty bad weather, but it's not fire weather. It's tornado, hailstones, and stuff like that.
Yep.
The only place where we get real tornadoes, really, in the southwest.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the scientists say climate change has made wildfires more frequent and destructive. No, it's not. Yeah, I got my political colleague is coming in talking about climate change, this and that, and I said to him, until I see climate change that deals with the sun and the rest of the solar system, I'm not interested in what they've got to say.
What was his answer to that, Rob?
Hey?
What was his answer to that?
Oh, he says, the sun hasn't got anything to do with it. And I said, the sun has more influence on the planet Earth and its climate than anything. By a wide margin. Human beings are ancillary to it.
We're just parasites on the planet.
You can explain to your colleague. Explain to them that the variation in water vapor in the atmosphere is 1 to 4%. That alone that by itself can explain climate change without any other changes at all. You just need water to move around. Just moving around, you're going to get changes in ambient temperatures. You're going to get changes in weather just by the variation of the water vapor. Because it's polar. It's a polar molecule.
Yeah, and that'll do it. The nitrous oxide stuff is, by the way, the fertilizer problem. I don't know where they get off saying that the fertilizer is bad for the climate when it's promoting plant growth, which is removing, greenhouse gas from the environment. It's almost like, they can't think very cleanly.
It's not like that. It is that is it. And the CIA wanted it to be that way.
Yeah. But it's like the logic doesn't work in the thinking. I was asked a question about why is carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide and other things dangerous, and I said, well, it's the gases that poison you behave like oxygen in the body, and the body can't get rid of it. So you suffocate basically because you can't get rid of the poison that the molecule is collecting. So instead of absorbing oxygen, you get carbon dioxide, which will kill you, or carbon monoxide, or the other ones that will do the same job. Anyway, that was the presentation I gave to a guy who asked me the question in town, and he because he was going to some think tank discussion, and there was a whole bunch of scientists there, and he just laid it out the way I explained it, and they were all looking at him dumbfounded, like, how can this guy know what the real problem is? It's almost like they hadn't even thought of it, why these things were an issue.
The Geometric View is a
Love is watching product. Love is watching being. Thank you for doing that. Keep your eyeballs out. Pay attention. There's a lot going down this year. Be vigilant. Be mindful. Be insightful. Be loving. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being kind. Share the love. Spread the love. Become the love. Amen.
Eyes all over the wall, eyes all over your body. Can I just see straight through with transparent golden scaling? The largest of the attic, let's embark on this because this is the journey. The journey is life. Take hold. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Join us in the fight for Christ, in the fight to save lives. Surprise, submersible, so fast, the first, the last of baptism, need to say more. Pay attention like the marrow in your bones, arrow in your back, arrow in your lungs, zero into the back, tertiary cushion neurons, synapses and narrow entrance into eternity. I'm a courier, a charismatic attitude, modern meters even neater, it might even be fun. Cider indeed, need nerds, you need nerds, need a virtue, need to be a reason. Feasibility to be a reason to be clean and sober, keys, open doors, signs of directions. Be the carrier of candlesticks, the man that brought you change. Every second you ride, until it can rivet, you pivot, potential, you curve and cat. Could be cold, could be copycat, could be copy corpse, could be Schrodinger's best. Could be micro hacker, Mackie normal, open-minded, itsy bitsy, freaking huge, a universal supermassive aspect of attached awareness. Aware of this all? Collaborative consumption. Are you aware of this all? Collaborative consumption. The new thing consumption. Collaborative consumption. Consumption. Get up now! Out of the boat! Drop! Where did it go? We don't got about a girl, but about a not about a goddess spirit. Get up, what's up? Get out, chapter. Little butter. I'm in search of, I'm in earth love, I'm in living life, I'm in living color, I'm in airdrop, I'm in earth thing, I'm in earth thing, I'm in earth thing, I'm in earth thing.
Bye.